The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hey everybody, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to do a big shout out for my great friend and one of the best in the business, Mr. Doug Billings. Right Side with Doug Billings, Right Side with Doug Billings. Doug is the future of the airwaves when it comes to independent broadcasters and podcasters. He is the new Rush Limbaugh. He's exactly what America needs right now, looking for honesty, looking for wisdom, looking for truth, looking for patriotism. Listen to Doug Billings at Right Side with Doug Billings. God bless you and God bless America, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are winning. We're winning, winning, winning. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Are you ready?
We are not liberal snowflakes who melt away in the face of tragedy, adversity, and challenge. We are a covenant nation under God, and his divine providence is not dead and it's not gone. It is living within each and every one of you. And you will bring it to life in such a way that the world has never seen before. We never back down. We never give up. We march forward.
Imsiman Khaif. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Islam ideko. Allahu Akbar.
هيا جيب بيجا خلي انا يجيب بيجا يا اخوان هيا جيب بيجا صار يوسف محمد هيا جيب اصبر هان عندك اصبر فيش راح هذا السايب وراه بس امانه معها لا ما تخليش معي لا مش تعطي الشباب ما تخليش معي امانه لا تخليش معي امانه اصبر محمد هيا جيب لاف
There ladies and gentlemen. We pause and remember today, October 7th, 2023, in that barbaric attack in Israel by Hamas, Hezbollah, and the usual players over there. And so I'm just going to take a very quick moment of silence, and I would like us to offer prayers and support to Israel and to her people and to our people, to everyone who had relatives there that was affected. So just a brief moment. Dead air is not welcomed in radio, but for a moment of silence for an event as barbaric as that, I think it's justified in this case. So, ladies and gentlemen, on the show, day 2, John Wick. That's right. I see you over there on Facebook. Hi, Elaine. Good to see you back with us as well as usual. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I have to say it that way because we have viewers around the planet watching us, and Real Talk Radio is a global affair. If you don't have the app, get it so that you can have us wherever you are. Yesterday, Wellington, New Zealand, for crying out loud, Finland. It's just amazing the reach of the Real Talk Radio Network, and I'm proud to be part of it. So day 2, here we go. Doug Billings, welcome back. Your daily dose of the right side, your daily dose of unvarnished truth on the mighty Real Talk Radio Network. So I've been doing this since 2020, giving you real analysis of skirting the issues of conspiracy, staying out of the rabbit holes, but always looking for the truth. So like many of you, we learn how to become awake, and we learn how to look at the state of play in America because of the lessons that we've learned from life's lessons. Our American founding fathers envisioned all of this happening in our republic under the guiding hand of divine providence. And I think my contention has been, and you'll hear me say again and again, that we in America have drifted so far away from what the founding fathers intended for this republic that we have got to get it back on track. And you and I, standing shoulder to shoulder, I always say we are in this together. Believe it. For the republic. I do believe it, and we are. So here on the right side, no hopium, right? No fear mongering, no conspiracy theories from Kookville. We give truth, straight-laced and honest. We'll have a bit of fun along the way. We always have a little bit of fun. to remind us that if we can't laugh at what's going on, at the absurdity of the radical liberal movement and the blue-haired bureaucrats that dictate our lives, we'd be too depressed to fight back. But down to business, an important day today, and I'm going to, as we offer up our remembrances for October 7th, I'm going to speak more about it in the second hour today. But just for a moment right now, for the nation of Israel, for the Jewish people, for the victims of that barbaric invasion and massacre, we offer just those few moments of consideration and prayer. I think that we honor the mettle of America and what we see happening in America today, especially with President Trump. We also have to tackle this crisis in Washington that has been instigated by the liberals because they want radically liberal financial support for people who are not citizens of this republic. The Schumer shutdown, a week old, right? Non-essential services grinding to a halt. President Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson standing like oak trees in the hurricane against the Democrat spending spree that doesn't just unbalance our budget, ladies and gentlemen. It threatens to bankrupt our grandkids and the people with whom we love and want to spend time with the most. So we have a moral responsibility. It's not just gridlock, folks. It's a full-throated shutdown for America's physical. And it's a battle, really, where every dollar is a vote for virtue or vice. Where do you stand? Are you going to vote for and support the virtue of America or the vice of providing benefits for non-citizens? I'm going to lay this out for you, and you're not going to hear any of this, none of this in-depth analysis on Fox, on CNN, MSNBC, or any of the legacy media outlets. You never really do, and we know that. Those guys are too busy finger pointing without peeling back the layers as to the why behind all of this. Why? And I mean, when I say why behind, I mean, I look at the constitutional roots of the problem and the prophetic warnings that we've had from our past, because those are real and they're applicable. Understanding this battle for us, for you and for me, for Marshall Chandler, for Elaine, for John Wick out there online watching, for all of you listening around the world, it is crucial and critical. It's necessary for us to understand the battle in which we are engaged here and how we win this war. Now, war, quote unquote, not civil war with muskets or rifles or modern day weaponry, but the war of ideals, the war of platforms, policies, and politics. Because we are in this for what the founding fathers meant and intended, limited government. And we want to reclaim the promise of a self-reliant republic. All of that today and more as we remember October 7th. Stay with me, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be right back.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield, electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle, that will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code Doug.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Right Side with Doug Billings, where we meet, as always, in determined prayer, determined patriotism. Ladies and gentlemen, let's cut to the chase here on the shutdown fiasco that's got the Beltway buzzing like a hornet's nest that's just been kicked by a mule. 6 days, and we are seeing workers furloughed. You know, we know this is coming when we hear about talks of a shutdown. We have people on both sides of the aisle, let's be honest, that are responsible for these kinds of predicaments. We have President Trump, thankfully, And Johnson, Speaker Johnson, appears to be holding the line. He sent his members home, so they're not even there. And we will see what happens. But this is a Schumer shutdown. And I mentioned it yesterday. I'll say it again because it bears repeating. Chuck Schumer is terrified of AOC and the squad and all of the radical liberal members of that wing of the formerly known as Democrat Party, who have now become this commu-socialist conglomeration of an anti-American group of people. And I think evidence of the obvious is sufficient. They are clearly anti-American, and Chuck Schumer is scared to death of them. It is what it is. Evidence of the obvious is sufficient. There is no way to avoid that conclusion. The legacy media, nope, they're not going to tell you this. They parrot the Democrat line lockstep. They have conference calls with leadership within this commu-socialist party, the legacy media, about what they're going to talk about. And they're under orders, of course, to spin this as a Trump problem, a Trump shutdown. So we can expect that from the same. They'll say things like, it's Trump's extremism. That's what's holding America hostage. Trump's extremism. Spare us, please, the selective amnesia that these people have from the same crew that cheered when Administrator Biden and his $1 trillion boondoggle, remember that? The 1.9 trillion with a T relief, quote, that was mostly paddled and mostly padded these blue state coffers without so much as a raised eyebrow from anybody on that side of the aisle. Nope, not at all. That's not what this is. This is Trump channeling the founding fathers with the grit of a Minuteman, right? I mean, drawing the line in the sand against the liberal Leviathan that's been gorging our paychecks. Really, if you look at it from a sense of history, since FDR's New Deal that began to balloon this beast into a bureaucratic blob. And so here we are left to deal with it. Who else among us could have possibly stood up to the deep state in the swamp other than Trump? I mean, it's the unique angle, folks, that you're not going to get anywhere else. Not from the cable screamers whose heads explode every time Trump has victories. And that's been a lot these days. The shutdown is not chaos that's born of any kind of incompetence. It's calculated counter-constitutionalism. It's a deliberate invocation of, I think, on the liberal side, and it's an invocation of anything that's anti-Trump. We must not give Trump victories. They hate this guy so much, nothing could inspire them to say, wow, he got it right this time. Or, well, thanks to President Trump, this happened. The guy, they're not going to do it. And for whatever reason, and it's been this way since he came down, the golden escalator in 2016. It's been the same thing. That moment, the resist movement, the radical liberal resist movement was born, and they have not let go of it. So what Trump has done is countermeasure that liberal invocation of anti-constitutionalism with our founding fathers' intent. And we're hoping to get this done. We're hoping to course correct. There's a lot of work to do. Many millions more of us on our side, on the right side, need to be thoroughly awakened so that we can get the job done. But we have to hurry up before this liberal anti-American ideology metastasizes. Some people think it may have already been, in the educational institutions. Maybe it has. It's been there so long. When we think about it, and for those of you who love history, indulge me for just 20 seconds. 189 years ago, three men, John Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and John Dewey, all of whom became incredibly wealthy because of capitalism, and they were capitalists in a working sense, but in a political sense, all three of those gentlemen were avowed socialists. That's not my opinion. That is a matter of fact. And they began to use their money in foundations, and they wanted to begin socialist America, and they did. And they went to the American institutions of education. And when do any American educational institutions refuse money? So these three men used their money to capture our educational institutions and indoctrinate not only our students, but the professors and so forth. So a long history. It's a show for another day, but that's how long we've been under attack, 189 years. For some people, it just seems since 2020, right? The check mark or the earmark or the bookmark is the theft of the American presidential election in 2020. That's when I woke up, right? Well, this has been going on for 180 years. And so we have a lot of work to do. And it's not to say, I'm not saying that because it's impossible to right the ship here. It's not. You know, the good thing about us conservatives is that we are smarter than liberals. And we will course correct and countermeasure what they've done. Now, the key is that we have to get activated. We have to get involved in our local level. You heard General Flynn on this program yesterday. His mantra for the last 5 years, local action has a national impact. And he's exactly right. The plan, you know, people always talk, what's the plan? What are we doing here? But the plan is for you and me, for all conservatives, to get involved. That's the plan in your local level, in Jefferson City, in Springfield, in Branson, in Joplin, in Kansas City, St. Louis, wherever. You get involved. That's how we reclaim the republic. Forget what's going on in Washington, D.C., okay? As far as reclaiming the republic, change never, and words are important, change never begins in Washington, D.C. It always begins at your local levels of government. And I mean everything from county boards of commissioners, school boards, mayors, aldermen. We have got to get involved. That's how we do it. So when we look at what Trump is doing with regards to restoring the Constitution and so forth, I mean, I think it's important. Look at Article 1, Section 9. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law. Those words are heavy, and those words have been ignored. We've got to get back to the Constitution. We've got to get back to the intent of the framers. You know, speaking of the framers, our founding fathers were still smarting from a king who taxed without representation and who spent money without restraint. And that was all baked into this ironclad check that the founders crafted to prevent exactly what the Democrats, the communist socialists, are shoving down our throats or had tried to shove down our throats. You remember, under Biden, Obama, and so forth, the $6 trillion omnibus monstrosity that was crammed into this. I mean, I could go down a list. Green new scams that subsidize windmills in tornado alleys. Windmills that, by the way, don't always work and destroy the environment in other ways. Healthcare for illegal immigrants, DEI slush funds. We could go on and on. This is what the Democrats want. This is what we're trying to wake the American people up to, and it's working. We're having an effect. More about this when I come back. Stay with me, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield, electromagnetic pulse. Electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle, that will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code Doug.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Right Side with Doug Billings upon you. And for the better, where we meet in determined prayer, determined patriotism, and that's how we roll over here. But these things that the radical left are throwing at us in this shutdown, I was monitoring Fox News during the break. You know the list. You know what the Green New Deal scams, the paying of health care for illegal immigrants, the DEI slush funds. Really, the DEI slush funds, when you look at that, what the DEI movement is doing, especially in schools, really what that is funding. I call it microaggression. Sometimes it's not microaggression. Sometimes it's overt and big time aggression against conservative people in the educational systems across this country. And then also, in this, the radical liberals with their Ukraine wish list that even the swamp will blush at when they look at it and read it to see what's really in there. So it's just a black hole of billions of dollars. But Trump's team, steadfast and on task. It's like a modern day Patrick Henry out there, these guys, stripping it all down just to the bare essentials. They gave the Democrats, the communist socialists, they gave them a bill that would have restarted the government that was only 24 pages long. And in it, beefed up border security to continue to stem the tide of this illegal invasion that we've had. Ironclad veteran care that honors our oath keepers, right? A Ukrainian package that requires Ukraine to pay for, imagine that, you actually got to pay for the defense that the United States offers you. And that it had also in there, by the way, you may not have heard this, our side had all of these things, plus a targeted disaster relief package for people in Florida who are still reeling, believe it or not, from the hurricanes and so forth, and in Hawaii from natural disasters that have happened in recent years to help them rebuild and clean up. So the Republican plan to do all of that was only 24 pages long, and there was no pork, there was no pandering to special interests. And the Communist Socialist Party in America, this conglomeration of communism and socialism who are anti-American, are whining like cornered weasels because without that bloat, without that pork, their big donor class doesn't get a cut of the action. The Hollywood elites, the big tech titans, big pharma, the industrial war complex, they don't get anything, so the radical left is all nervous and skittish. The PACs, the political action committees, nothing. So it starves these people for the kickbacks that have been keeping them afloat for decades. And that's what you get when you zoom in on this stuff. When you zoom in, there's one outrageous thing in here that's bare. At least I read it. When I read it, I thought it was outrageous. I don't know if you'll agree, but let's see. So they have this. They put this must-pass bill in place, the kind of line item that exposes the rot, the decay that we have in D.C. Here's the line item that caught my attention. I can't believe that I'm the first one to point it out to you, but $250 billion for expanded Medicaid. And that's where they stop. The liberals will say, well, Medicaid, healthcare for all of us, for all of our citizens who reach that, that senior age, who need it in their lives, disabled and so forth. But it covers illegal immigrants nationwide. And that includes people from the cartels' mules who are moving this stuff back and forth to the economic opportunists who have bypassed Ellis Island for the Rio Grande to get into this country. It's ridiculous. It's straight up not America first, what these people are fighting for on the left. It's America last, and it's a betrayal that spits in the face of every legal immigrant who waited in line and swore the oath of allegiance to this republic. One of the great missteps that we have in America these days is assimilation. We don't expect people to assimilate anymore into our society. Why did we stop doing that? We swearing allegiance and assimilating. Now, there are some ethnic groups that do an incredible job at assimilating into our American culture. But we have got to make sure that we demand it from those who are not. I mean, the radical left, while our Gold Star veterans rot on these Veterans Administration hospitals and healthcare wait lists, hardworking citizens in Missouri, Ohio, Alabama, Kansas, wherever, they have to skip their blood pressure medications to scrape together mortgage payments under this group. Schumer wants to hand free health care on a silver platter to border jumpers who've gamed the system with fake asylum claims. That's what we're up against. No more. It isn't compassion that they offer anyone, the left. It's not compassion. It's conquest by compassion. It's a Trojan horse designed to lock in permanent communist socialist, formerly known as Democrat, voting blocks. That's what they want. That's what the open borders was all about, folks. The new electoral base of the radical left liberal movement in America. All of that going on while they infiltrate our own premiums by 20%. According to the latest CBO data that I've read just the other day, this is a 20% inflation of our premiums that we pay that has resulted in this illegal immigration crisis. The media conveniently ignores that. But trace the lineage, my friends. It's Reagan's 1986 amnesty promise on steroids, except without the enforcement teeth that were supposed to follow in those footsteps. Today, it's just open borders as an election insurance scam, election insurance policy. That's going back, I know, to the Biden-Harris administration when our borders were open. Trump has now closed them. But again, to be fully awake, we have to fully understand that was the reason it was purposeful. New members of our electoral base. And why was it? It begs the question, why is this anti-American to the core? Because it shreds, ladies and gentlemen, it shreds our social compact. The social compact that we inherited from the Mayflower. I mean, really, rewarding lawbreakers over the legal residents who have paid into this pot, turning our melting pot into a welfare sieve that drowns out the American dreamers because of debt and property tax and all of these things that I've argued may very well be unconstitutional. If you have anyone running for governor in your state, make sure that they're talking about eliminating or reducing the absolute unconstitutional property taxes that have plagued us for decades. Oh, but Doug, it's not. There's court precedent. The Supreme Court has said that the government can tax us. To a degree, yes, but not so much as that it drowns us from preventing us from achieving the American dream. If a property tax prevents us from securing and pursuing life, liberty, and happiness, it's unconstitutional. We've got to have people that are brave enough to say this, people that are in office or running for office. Our founders never dreamt of a republic where the fruits of our liberty that were earned by plows and muskets and revolution would fund foreign freeloaders who mock our sovereignty at the fence that they're jumping. And they didn't envision an Islamic horde and an infiltration of that group and that demographic. We were founded on Judeo-Christian principles. Not Islamic principles, not Hindu principles. Now, that's not to say that people aren't welcome, but they've got to assimilate. We can't have an Islamic Sharia law portioned off in Detroit. We can't have that. And so the Communist Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, is terrified at the possibility of losing the illegal electoral base that they worked so hard to gather with their open border policies. So that's why you see, in part, so much animus and hatred towards President Trump. He's undoing everything that they had hoped for. The progressive radical liberal movement in America is being unraveled one thread at a time. And the timing here is no accident. Fresh off of the midterms, and when we had our red wave victory that washed away a dozen blue seats or so, Trump's got this ironclad mandate. The voters didn't just whisper this, by the way. Stop the spending. Close the borders. In November, we roared those things from the rooftops, from MAGA rallies that we saw all around the country to the kitchen table that you had with your family dinner. But Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are betting on public fatigue. They're betting on us getting tired of the shutdown. This is taking too much of a toll. We Americans, we everyday patriots are being forced to suffer through this. So public fatigue, they're counting on it like poker players with a marked deck, hoping that you'll swallow the shutdown blame and then say, you MAGA meanies, you're the ones that did it, while they sneak amnesty riders disguised as humanity into these deals. They're masters of illusion when it comes to humanity, when it comes to compassion. They're masters of illusion, folks. Look back over what they've tried to do with their policies, and you show me where their compassion. When you hear talk of, we need social justice, that's abject, factual nonsense. Social justice in their minds is a liberal, socialist, communist marketplace and society. It has nothing to do with feeding the poor and the masses, unless those poor and masses are going to vote in their new electoral base. And then, of course, they get all the free stuff they can have. Free schools, free food, free health. You get it, right? You get it. And is it dangerous? You'd better believe it's dangerous. You bet your last Liberty dollar that this thing is dangerous. It's anti-American fiscal suicide. It actually inverts what the founding fathers had in mind for a vision of being frugal, vigilant, a republic that was not supposed to be bloated into this European-style entitlement trap that we're in, where the state becomes daddy and we're all on the dole for all of this millions of waste and fraud and abuse. I mean, if liberals ran the Continental Congress, we'd still be British subject, ladies and gentlemen, bankrolled by endless tea tariffs and powder wig subsidies for the elite. Why did we revolt? Taxes, non-representation, a sense of the divine providence of God calling us to the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. Let's remember this as we endeavor to take the mantle of determined patriotism and prayer up and engage in this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, first half hour in the books. I'll be back. Hey, don't go away, because if you do, the liberals win. I'll be back. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The King, Elvis. What was your first concert in the whole world, ladies and gentlemen? Mine was Elvis. Elvis was my first concert. That's why I love the guy. I was 10 years old. My dad took me, and Elvis was in his prime. And just have been an Elvis fan ever since that. So, and if you catch me on a good night, if we're ever out and about, and if there's a karaoke microphone, I'll sing a little Elvis for you. Really will. And I'll win. I'll win too. All right, here we are. Right Side with Doug Billings, Real Talk Radio Network. And, oh, by the way, if you want to be part of the program, 636-224-6300, 636-224-6300. As long as you want to talk about the topics of the day, you're welcome to join the conversation. And I hope, as I look at this thing, I jumped off of, I was taking a look at Fox News during a couple of breaks ago, and apparently that disconnected folks from Facebook. I apologize for that. I'll never do that again. But we never went down. Here we are. I hope President Trump remains as firm as he is now on this thing. I don't want our side to cave to this shutdown. Look, I don't doubt the hardships that it poses for some people out, for many, not just some, for many people. But this is, I just remember what my dad used to tell me. When we face adversity, challenge, and tragedy, there are always blessings in those moments that are waiting to be born, always. And so if we hold the line here, the blessings that we'll see are a reclaiming of our republic from what this Communist Socialist Party is trying to do. I mean, just George Washington at Newburgh. Remember Newburgh Heights? Quelling the army mutinies that were not getting paid yet, the bitter cold, that had low morale and so forth. But there was no mutiny for lack of pay. Their duty to the Republic came first. And it was because of George Washington's resolve that our soldiers came to see this. And so, I mentioned President Trump and George Washington in the same breath. You're darn right I do. President Trump is the most substantial president that we've ever had. And I'm carefully saying substantial. I'm not saying best, like he's better than George Washington. I think George Washington is probably, he's got to be number one. But as far as what's going on and what we're facing in this country, as far as what the radical left has thrown against us and how they are trying to, as Obama wanted, to fundamentally transform America away from what he meant was away from divine providence, away from the intent of the founders. That's exactly what Obama meant. And they've been trying to do it long before he said that, by the way, but he was the first one to say it out loud. So he's the most substantial because of what we're going through here and what he represents. And we've got lots of things to show for it, lots of positive things to show for it. The winners and losers in this, you know, the losers have got, you can't come away from this thinking that the Communist Socialist Party is not the loser here. Again, they don't self-reflect on why they failed, on why they lost to the election last time, the presidential election. They don't seem to understand why multiple dozens of millions of people are leaving that party. They just don't seem to understand. They double down on their nonsense, whether it's the shutdown, whether it's transgenderism, whether it's the economy, whether it's our trends towards socialism, whether it's men and women's sports. I mean, all of it. The border, on and on and on. They just don't reflect about the will and the desires of what the American people really want. New York Times, Washington Post, they'll all call us. They'll all blame us for creating some sort of a GOP dysfunction or dystopian society. They say these things because they're petrified. What they've presented to us is a circus of chaos. But that real playbook that they've got, there's this, you look at the subterranean streams on K Street in Washington, D.C., what's really going on up on the Hill in the Beltway. Buried deep in all of that Democrat, communist, socialist, clean continuing resolution bill that they talk about, the $500 million for so-called equity audits. They want to spend $500 million on equity audits. You got to be kidding me. I just, it's a palm to the face. They want to go through all of the federal agencies. Just when Doge had begun to critique and save money, $500 million on equity. When I was in human resources, I told people we will not deal in equality. I can't treat you equally compared to her or him or them. Treating people equally is not only a bad idea, it's literally and almost possible. It's impossible. Now, if you want to talk about treating people fairly, now that's a conversation that we can have. But to treat people equally in these senses is not, I can't. Too many people have different life experiences, different worldviews, different baggage. You can't do it. We had when I was in corporate America, a policy. When a loved one dies, you get 3 days for bereavement. Okay. It's a typical policy. Many companies have it. I gave a person 8 days once, and I had a line Monday morning out into the hallway. What's going on? Why did he get 8 days? And they overreact and they blow up. That's not equal. Because he had to go to India to bury his mother. It takes a couple of days really just to get there. So you see, you can't always treat people equally, but you can almost always treat them fairly. And that's what the radical liberal movement misses in America. The equity audits is a euphemism for a witch hunt that targets conservatives in the workforce. That's what equity audits are. If they're conservative, get them out of here. And don't get me started on the $2 billion earmark that they've got in there for global gender programs. It's in there. That exports our hard-worked, it's woke nonsense. It almost leaves you speechless. Not me, because I'm a broadcast professional. But it will leave you speechless if you didn't have the ability to countermeasure what they're trying to do. We will not give in to that nonsense. It erodes the republic, which is exactly what they want to do. They've been at it for decades. And folks, it's liberalism unmasked in its full carnival barker's glory. Compassion is the glittering cover story for creeping control. Equity audits, it's how they control creep, how they get control of us slowly and steadily. Trojan horses, turning our taxpayer dollars into precision-guided weapons that are lobbed against the very Judeo-Christian foundations that had forged the exceptionalism of this nation. You contrast what we want with what they want. We offer unyielding clarity of conservative governments, the kind that doesn't just smell like government, but it lives the American dream. It exudes the intent of the founding fathers. Johnson's counterproposal, again, it was lean, mean, and a funding machine that would have taken us through March of 2026. 24 pages laced with surgical riders to claw back the Biden-era regulations that strangled our energy independence like a python on a pipeline. That's what we're doing, clawing the EPA's methane mandates that jacked up natural gas prices 30% overnight, removed. Trump's ex post yesterday, it hammered it home. Democrats want an endless war on our wallet and our way of life. It's time to end it with extreme prejudice. I love that. And you know, that's another thing. I talk about prosecuting criminals with extreme prejudice, something that our liberal judges don't do. So we've got wars on multiple fronts, and we've got avenues and ways by which they are absolutely trying to derail us from what the founding fathers intended for our republic, namely this creeping control into big government and your safety that they've risked. Now, the founding fathers had various degrees of belief in divine providence. I understand that. But when you read their private writings, their journals, the Federalist Papers, you all should be reading the Federalist Papers. That's your homework assignment. We see that divine providence was an everlasting thread through their belief systems. We need to begin to say it loud and clear again. This is a nation founded on Judeo-Christian principles, virtues, and practices. This is a religious republic. It was intended for a religious and moral people. And we need to begin to examine that in what we teach our children in schools. And getting back to the curriculums that were intended by the founding fathers. Now, prior to my entrance into corporate America many years ago, I was a teacher. I earned a master's degree in curriculum and instruction. If you're from Raytown, Missouri, that means education. And I taught for a few years. So I know a thing or two about curricula and curriculum development and so forth. And when you research colonial American curriculum schools, public schools, and you research early American schools after our independence, what you will find in the typical junior high and high school age bracket for kids are things like what we might expect, the typical, arithmetic, and not just math, by the way, arithmetic, spelling, English, the arts, sciences, things that we would expect. Also physical education. There's also things that may take you by surprise. Early colonial American and early American curriculums included civics as opposed to just pure history, which was also taught. Two different things. The functioning of our republic and our government, civics, writing in and being able to read cursive, might seem like such an inconsequential thing. But could it be, and I'll put it to you, could it be that the radical left movement in this country doesn't want our kids to be able to read cursive so that perhaps they won't be able to read the original copies of our founding documents? I don't know. I'm just asking. Also in those early American curriculums, philosophy. And I want it back. I want all of the early American curriculum that I'm talking about back. But why philosophy, Doug? Why? Because it teaches kids to be critical thinkers. And we haven't done that in 45, 50 plus years. We have taught instead kids to be accustomed to and expect Reward for nothing. You don't have to earn it. Hey, you're going to get a participation trophy. No, we'll get it. Oh, and by the way, if you really do feel, threatened by a final exam, we'll give you a safe room. You can go sit in there, and while everyone else, it's that kind of nonsense. The tests, I challenge you, look at the tests in your local counties, your local schools, in your city. And when they talk about testing results, look at what the items on those tests are, because I'll bet you that you'll find an 80-20 mix. The 80% is a globalist left-wing agenda, a mishmash of DEI woke nonsense. America's not exceptional. America was founded by evil people on the backs of slaves, that kind of nonsense and more. And then the 20% is the traditional stuff that they have to still test us on. They would rather not, but they have to, because they know to some degree we're looking, reading, writing, math, all of that. But it's an 80-20. It should be absolutely redone. The globalist 80% thrown out. Let's have the testing be real about what these curriculums should be offering kids. So philosophy, I want it in there because it teaches kids to be critical thinkers. Latin, taught in all of the early American and political in public schools. Why Latin? Because it's the language of science. Physical education, I mentioned, and Trump's getting us back to that with the presidential physical fitness standards and awards. And then finally, last but certainly not least, the Bible as part of the curriculum. What Bible, Doug? That's what the radical liberals go nuts at this point. You mean the Christian Bible? Well, of course I mean the Christian Bible. This is a Christian nation. This is a nation founded with principles found within the Christian Bible, ladies and gentlemen. There is no denying it. Oh, but wait a minute. Thomas Jefferson said there's a separation. No. That's the Baptist Danbury quote that's taken out of context every single time the radical liberal movement brings it up. He was not Thomas Jefferson. He had he was certainly not a strong Christian in our sense of the word, but he did not mean in the Bradford Danbury Baptist Association statement that we should remove religion from our society. He did not mean that. Read his personal writings. Every opening to Congress and the Senate, every speech they gave in public and private writings alike, the founding fathers recognized and in fact invoked providence, meaning God. John Adams, this Constitution is meant only for a religious and moral people. It cannot meet and serve or live or survive with anything else. So it's the intent of the founders. And once you get to know me, you will know that I will harp on the intent of the founding fathers all the time. And with Trump, we're getting it back. Now, we've got a lot of work to do, but this is what we're leaning towards, and we're getting back to the roots of the founders. Maybe these are things that will come up in months and years ahead, and I know I have to pray for patience in those terms and the regards every day. But without Trump's torque behind all of what's going on, and in the Middle East, Hezbollah lights up the north in a southern scorcher, right? Without Trump's torque, the radical left goes crazy. Crude barrel, oil, causing situations to raise the price of oil to $100 or more a barrel. And it happens overnight. But right now, your 401k is going like gangbusters, the stock market like gangbusters. And I am not one. Look, the stock market fluctuates with or without any particular president. I get it. It's like people who always say, hey, look, Trump's out golfing again. He's not working. Well, that's always BS. And I never even complained when Biden was on the beach eating his ice cream or whatever. Presidents are always working, always within the reach of their cell phone or someone in the know. They're always working, even when they're on vacation. So I don't buy in to the, hey, this is his fifth golf trip this week. I don't buy into it. But we're getting away from what the left wants, the climate change nonsense, the DEI. Trump is now threading the needle with surgical savvy. And this is the product of not only Trump just being an astute observer of people, it's his business acumen. That's what's serving him here. Aid packages are now ironclad and veto proof against a diversion to Hamas. You know, Trump is making it so that the aid that we're providing can't be diverted to Hamas. They are being strangled, figuratively, by our actions, by our economic sanctions, and it's working. And there are historical pivots, I think, that are interesting. I mean, this is kind of like Nixon's China pivot or Carter's Camp David, both of which were good things. I give Carter credit where credit is due. I think the reason Carter stayed alive so long was because he wanted to make sure that he saw Biden cement his role as the country's worst president. But without those platitudes, pure power projection that peels back all of these proxies when we look at them, Trump is on that same level with Nixon in China, Carter at Camp David. There's real opportunity here. And of course, the liberal left can't talk about that. No, Trump always bad. We can't give him any credit. That's against your orders. You can't do it. Hamas is finally at the table with terms, ladies and gentlemen. Surrendering the style. We'll see if they really go through with it, and we'll see if they say yes or no ultimately to what Trump is asking. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, up against a break that will take us into the final second of the second day of conservative excellence. I'll be right back. Stay with me. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield. Electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle, that will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code Doug.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. The Right Side with Doug Billings, Real Talk Radio Network, where truth, honor, conservative values rain down upon us like manna from heaven. Here we go. Wow, the last few minutes of the second hour of the second day right here. Don't forget DougBillings.us. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to learn a little bit about me, DougBillings.us. And on this program, tomorrow, Wednesday, David Harris Jr. What a deal that is. David Harris Jr., the number one show on Newsmax. He's got talk about all sorts of things with regard to the state of play in America. And on Friday, right here, Eric Trump, ladies and gentlemen, Eric Trump right here, and looking into next week, trying to get Roger Stone and a few others. Ladies and gentlemen, this today, October 7th, 2025, we look back to 2023 to the victims. We offer our sincere best wishes and sympathies. We want to see this deal come through with Trump, Hamas, the Middle East, Israel, all of the players, and snap this vicious cycle of vengeance that has been going on for millennia between these people. We do not want this to be eternal. And the ripple effects that this process is having, and I think this is a good and hopeful place to end today. These are good things as a result of what's going on with the Trump Peace Initiative. Allies in places like the United Kingdom, slashing aid and pipelines to Gaza, to the grifters over there who are making money and funneling it to the terrorists. Europe's sleepwalking, usually, with regards to all of this, but now they're awake. From Paris to Berlin, they've been jolted awake to the migration blowback that's turning their countries into a wasteland of national identity, and to buckle down and give aid in the Middle East where it's necessary and where it won't fall into the hands of the terrorists. So for you and me right here in America, a safer global chessboard means that we have a stronger home front, fewer veterans being maimed in needless, unnecessary Middle Eastern wars, more resources to route our way for the economy, a revitalization of a culture away from anti-Semitism, especially on our campuses, and also a conversion of criminals into real prosecution. These are all the things that are happening as a result of what Trump's presence means in America. It never ceases to amaze me when I look at especially what's going on here, Portland and Chicago and other cities that are blue, that are absolute war zones, that the radical left hates President Trump so much and are under such stringent orders that they can't acknowledge the benefit of sending in the National Guard or other police resources. Now, some do, but not the main players, not the hierarchy of the radical liberal movement. And again, we talk about self-reflection. They just don't do it, the radical left. They don't reflect. It's absolutely astonishing that they would hate a man, President Trump, so much that they wouldn't publicly come out and support police and law enforcement. In fact, they do the exact opposite. In Chicago and in Portland, blue, liberal, radical left extremist mayors order the police departments to not engage and to not help the ICE officers who are under siege in these cities. Well, believe it or not, what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in Portland and Chicago and other war zones, Minneapolis, they're all related. And in as much as that Trump is having an effect, look, there was a time just as recently as 6 years ago in this country where, a traditional, normal, good-hearted American person would look to what was then the Democrat Party and go, that's me, that's my ticket. I want them because for me, they stand for the common man and woman. They stand for working class. They stand for American values. And there was a time where, in some mindsets that was, you understand why John and Jane Doe on the streets of America. But after these last 6.5 years, it began in earnest with Obama, but it had been in the works for many decades before. But it became obvious, is what I'm saying, especially with Biden and Harris, this decomposition of the Democrat Party, this transference away from what it once stood for. And you and I know, ladies and gentlemen, the Democrat Party of John F. Kennedy, the Democrat Party of Bill Clinton doesn't exist anymore. And so John and Jane Doe realize it, and they're coming to our side in record numbers. And what's going on in Portland, in Chicago, and in the Middle East is related to the great reawakening that we're seeing in this country. And it's a reawakening not just to politics, but to spirituality, especially among young white men, by the way. They're waking up to the values of family, the value of a father and a husband in the home, the spiritual leader of a family. Women waking up to that too, young women. The Gen Z crowd is awake to this. The Charlie Kirk movement was and it remains phenomenal, and it's a good thing. And we owe a lot to that movement. We owe a lot to what President Trump is doing. We owe a lot to the great reawakening of the divine providence of God. And ultimately, we owe so much to you, good people who are now awake and getting involved in your local levels of government. As General Flynn says, that's the plan. That's how we get the republic back. Local involvement. I've been echoing that for the last 5 years. Happy to share it with you here. That's the plan. That's how you get it back. Change, as I said at the beginning of this program today, very rarely, if ever, in fact, never starts in Washington, D.C. Change by design, by the brilliant foresight of the founding fathers, they knew that change begins with you in your local levels of government. And they fully intended this to be a nation built on Christian principles. So we endeavor every day to peacefully get involved and work towards those goals. And we ask for the virtues of wisdom with a capital W, right? The wisdom from the Holy Spirit that enables us to discern the truth, to see it, and to pursue it into action. Not reaction like the radical liberal movement does, but to peaceful action by virtue primarily, I hope, of local involvement in your community of government. school boards, boards of county commissioners, aldermen, poll watchers during election season, whatever it may be, get involved. That's the recipe for what the founders intended. And this great reawakening, this spiritual reawakening that we're encountering, is nothing short of miraculous. Remember, adversity, challenge, and tragedy. Most certainly we've been going through those lately in America. But as a result of those things, blessings are there waiting to be born. And we're beginning to see them actually be born today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. DougBillings.us is where you can find me. I'll be back right here tomorrow with David Harris Jr. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great day. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.